go into Powerpuff, sorry, Rowdy Rough Boys versus Shaggy.
Absolutely. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there is a special rule in the grand finals of the tournament here at Crap Media. For those that don't, I mean, I just assume that no one listens to anything we say.
That's fair.
So obviously, Aeris, having won the upper bracket, has gotten himself an advantage in this matchup as we go into it on Trophy's Edge. Aeris needs to win a best of 5, of course, but he only needs to win 1. If Brian is able to survive the gauntlet and wins the best of 5, the scores will be reset, and we will be forcing these guys to go through it one more time in another best of 5 bout in order to determine a true, unequivocated, undisputed winner. We're seeing a lot of damage come out here on both sides of the field. We got 61 to 79, a even damage output from both guys, but we do see Aeris with that edge control trying to set up for the option select elimination we've been seeing constantly throughout the night. We have at least got a bit of a game on our hands. It's been almost a minute before we have a stock loss, which I personally love to see. We see a beautiful super kick there from BrianYi, getting Aeris into kill range very, very definitively. Both these guys dancing around the edge, and Brian potentially looking to finish off the first stock Aeris has. 115 to 114, slightly in the favor of BrianYi, and there is the uppercut to eliminate Aeris first stock. Immediately answers back with elimination of their own. We are at 0-0 reset on stock 2. Ladies and gentlemen, I will remind you that Aeris and BrianYi had their initial match in the semifinals that did go 3-2 in Aeris' favor. So Brian is someone who can absolutely stand up to Aeris' prowess when it comes to quick and efficient eliminations, as we've seen so far. Aeris looking for another one, but Brian very well trained against Aeris. The match is going to continue. 5 minutes 10 on the clock. 60, 60, 70. There's a second elimination. And now, very definitively, Aeris has advantage going into this. Brian immediately evens it up, though. We're going into final stock of the round. Aeris looking for that elimination. Super kick is going to save Brian. 4 minutes 50.
Oh no. I was gonna say that Brian's been a little bit greedy immediately after taking a stock, charging that super basically in the middle of the stage. But it has ended up evening out here. That being said, Aeris huge capitalization off of the parry read. Aeris taking a split second to let Brian parry, and then punishing accordingly, and launching BrianYi into that right blast zone.
Very, very nice showing from Aeris, again showing that pinpoint precision when it comes to eliminations. Going over to Sky Arena for round 2, and immediately we're seeing that aggressive opening from Brian that we see constantly. 40 damage off of the bat. Aeris trying to answer back with a little bit of their own combo, but Brian continuing to break through. 52 to 19, going up to 70 to 19. We could be seeing a very early elimination in favor of BrianYi here. As we're only sort of 20 seconds into the match. Aeris finally getting a little bit of momentum, pushing back to the other end of the stage. Did go for the uppercut, but unfortunately did not follow through. Brian continuing to dish out the hurt now. 101 to 76 though. Aeris definitely has a little bit of advantage, a little bit more control.
That was a good read from Brian, throwing out the parry. Fortunately for him, Aeris whiffed slightly, making that parry a little bit whiffing just a tiny bit. That being said, Brian able to close out that first stock, now in a precarious position, trying to get a reversal off stage, getting a decent 37 points the heat onto the girls, or sorry, onto the boys. But honestly, these early points of damage don't feel like they matter when the Rowdy Rough Boys just do that. When Shaggy's off stage, the boys are like, "Ew, look what's over there!" And Shaggy turns his head, and all of a sudden he's in the Nether Realm, and another one of him spawns.
Brian went for a beautiful double axe handle elimination there, and we're going to see basically 0-0 stock, final stock of the round. Like, we've seen this a lot when it comes to these two. A very, very even matchup. Brian desperately needs to try and capture this point if he wants to stay in the game. But of course, Aeris very, very confident, perhaps looking for another elimination. 50-7 though. Brian once again running away with it when it comes to heat levels and damage, able to dish out devastating heavy combos, but did seem to exhaust himself a little bit there. Now Aeris is going to take full advantage, immediately even it up a little bit to 54-83, continuing and perhaps going for that elimination. Hits that downward spike. Shaggy just able to survive it, both establishing themselves back on stage. PowerPuff Girls at 99. Aeris definitely in a rough spot. Brian was able to ricochet them off the side of the stage. Brian gets their first point on the board when it comes to grand finals.
That is the first step to taking everything. Part one is definitely resetting the bracket, making sure that you win the first best of 5 to make sure that you have a chance to win the second best of 5. That being said, Aeris, I don't know what their mentality is. I know a lot of people who are on the winner side take the pre-reset, just kind of mentally, a little bit kind of easy, right? And then once the reset happens, they take it fully seriously. As Brian really in the chat is criticizing me personally for calling him the wrong name.
I mean, I've been calling him Brian. I've been trying to call him BrianYi as best I can. I've had a few slip-ups, and I do apologize to Brian.
That's my fault. I mean, that's my fault.
Absolutely.
And I'm doing it definitely to antagonize him, so you're fine.
Yeah, no, we know. It does look like still like very even on heat as we're about 40 seconds into this round. 88-74, and that is why they call him BrianYi. That devastating blow, very nearly eliminating the PowerPuff Girls, although they were able to stay alive just about. Brian at 99, Aeris at 88, still very, very even as this match continues. So as platforms coming back to the center, when they reach that outermost point, it does really risky, as both these guys love playing around the edges of the map near that blast zone. Aeris does get the initial elimination, but Brian answers right back with an uppercut to even up the points immediately. Once again, does not land the super kick, but does position himself in a somewhat decent place and has still avoided the majority of damage, still at 0 on his second stock. Meanwhile, Aeris at 64 is in a much worse position. Finally trying to get a little bit of damage on, but Brian, a beautiful edge shot there, basically getting an entire stock off of Aeris clean, and now absolutely momentum has shifted into Brian's favor. We could be seeing Champion's advantage trigger in full, as now Brian is in a little bit of a rough spot, but is able to establish himself on that platform and has dealt a lot of damage to Aeris once again. Aeris trying to look for that elimination, going for that top right corner like they had before. Unfortunately, Brian caught on the edge of stage there, and we're down to our final stop for both guys, 47-0.
A huge part of Champion's advantage, as you've so coined it, CJ, is that Aeris closed that game through. But what you really want to make sure is that Brian does not, if you are Aeris, right, sitting on winner's side, sitting on the side where you don't want the Shaggy player who's coming up from losers to get any momentum, you want to make sure that, like I said, you don't want to make sure that they get any momentum. If BrianYi won 3 games in a row, all of a sudden, losers feels really scary. That being said, Aeris doing a really, really good job of making sure to snub any momentum that Brian was trying to accumulate. That being said, Brian not being deterred, getting a decent amount of damage onto the girls and dodging out on so much damage off stage. 85 to 46. All of a sudden, a straight jab combo for Shaggy will kill the Rowdy Rough Boys. Or, you know what? A fully charged side B will also do the trick.
Nah, absolutely. That is really, really difficult there. As Brian does get that initial stock, desperately trying to stay alive in this series, trying to keep the grand finals going as long as possible. There's a beautiful uppercut from Aeris, but Brian able to use that supercharge to stay alive, basically pausing his momentum in order to keep him on the edge of that blast zone. Aeris definitely looking for that uppercut, but Brian was able to reach it. That second one though is gonna follow through, and Aeris has evened up the life count at least 27-0 as we get the second stock from Brian, who once again tries to establish that edge guard as best he can. Follows through with another beautiful elimination with the use of the knee there. Also is able to pull off the supercharge. And now it looks like Aeris is going to be looking to try and get another elimination quickly to even up the playing field. Brian was able to use that super kick of his to get away from the deadly combo for the most part. 29 to 42, 2 lives to 1. Everything is looking Brian.
That being said, we see every time Shaggy is off stage, Aeris does such a good job of closing out stocks, bringing the stock count 2-2. As we see Brian getting punished for hitting the parry button. Like I said, Aeris is really good at waiting for any amount of damage, waiting for any amount of hit lag, just lag in general, to make sure that they can punish whether it's BrianYi or anybody else for hitting the parry button, for hitting a dodge button, for trying to swing with a lagging move like the up attack or the up special that Shaggy has here. Good dash dance into the combo, punishing BrianYi